Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Climate Change Roundtable at this year's Resolve. Tonight's roundtable is featuring Resolution Fellows Don Musil and Maria Castillo and will be facilitated by Addis. Before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to DuPont for sponsoring this roundtable. This would not have been possible without you. During the session, I encourage you all to engage with us via the chat function on your right. And as a reminder, this session will end at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, at which I will return to virtually escort you to the main stage. Now it is my great honor to introduce Abiy Shimelis. Abiy is a sustainability advocate who is passionate about the environment, curious about green businesses and how they can shape our future, and interested in the application of development communications through cultural arts and media and mobilizing inclusive, well-researched yet unconventional approaches to peacebuilding. He co-founded Addis Sustainable Life in 2014 as his first creative enterprise that distributed upcycled and biodegradable paper products in his hometown, Addis Ababa. Abiy is a civil environmental engineer by training, a Resolution Project Fellow from Plastics, and a One Young World ambassador, currently pursuing his master's degree in sustainability and business at the University of Leeds. Abiy, on behalf of Resolution, I want to say batam amaseganalo, and I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Amaseganalo, Carly. Thank you so much. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for having us and me and as well. Hello, everyone joining us here from all over the world. It's really interesting, and I'm really happy to reconnect with Resolution team, fellows. Don, Maria here. Welcome to you both. We have an interesting topic today, which is revolving mostly around climate change and its mitigation. And some of our thoughts, we're just going to be sharing some of our thoughts about it, and hopefully we're going to get some questions from participants, and then we're going to get through them as much as we can in this 30 minutes. So also, I would first like to invite Dawn to introduce herself, and then we'll go to Maria before we start with the first question and kind of warm up for today's conversation. How about that?
Sounds good. Hi, my name is Dawn Musil. My background is in agriculture. I actually grew up on an apple farm, and we had a couple bad years of producing apple fruit, and an extension agent came to us and said that we should probably start keeping bees because there had been such an extensive loss of native pollinators and so many issues with pollination in the past few years. So I was 14 when that happened and started beekeeping then and became kind of our family beekeeper. And that's something that has just carried on throughout my life. The opportunity came in undergrad while I was studying abroad to participate in a social venture challenge that the Resolution Project put on. And it was an opportunity for me to kind of explore the world of entrepreneurship and see that the idea of combining beekeeping with economic opportunity could in fact be a viable chance to bring people into a space of opportunity and kind of address some issues in beekeeping as well. So through the Resolution Project, that really got me started and enabled me to begin building what was Be the Change. And that was something we ended up working with up to a dozen women. It didn't continue for too long, but was transitioned into an AmeriCorps project with a community garden. But it did allow me to learn a lot, see how the community kind of had the impact and felt the impact from both beekeeping and economic development in very small ways. But more than anything, kind of taught me that entrepreneurship was a potential pathway, and specifically social entrepreneurship was a way that there can be opportunity created and also problem solved. So that's led me to first of all, a fellowship in entrepreneurship through Venture for America, and then building my own company for the past 2 years, which is called HiveLend, and I connect beekeepers and farmers to facilitate sustainable pollination. So I've been working on that for the past couple of years, and am now Similar to Abby, a student in the UK getting my MBA. So super excited to be here. Very passionate about climate change mitigation for its impacts on agriculture and entomology, and very excited to talk to you guys all today.
Definitely, that would be wonderful. We're going to be asking you more about them as well on the other questions. And Maria, can you introduce yourself to our attendees? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. And thank you to everyone attending this panel today and for listening to us and hopefully engaging with us through the chat function. So my name is Maria Castillo. I am from Colombia and I am currently in Colombia, although for the past 7 years I was in the US. My training is in environmental sciences, and throughout the years I've been really interested in a wide range of sustainability related topics, ranging from waste management, recycling, upcycling, to water quality, and now more recently air quality. And very similar to Don, also when I was studying abroad 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in a social venture challenge by the Resolution Project. So I partnered with two of my closest friends in that study abroad program. And upon getting the Resolution Fellowship, we founded this social venture called UpTica, which is based in Costa Rica, near where one of my co-founders lives and grew up. We work with a rural community, with women in that community, and they make reusable bags out of upcycled materials and natural fabrics. And the process of working with them this past almost 5 years has been really enriching and really beautiful to see how we have been able to create some economic opportunities for these women who are making sustainable products. So we're helping both the community, the environment, the local economy, and it's been a great ride being part of the Resolution Project and meeting so many wonderful fellows from all over the globe. And for the past 3 years, I've been doing research in air quality and public health. So I'm currently a research assistant at George Washington University's School of Public Health, and I focus on the intersection between air quality, climate change, and human health. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion to tell you more about what we're doing and why climate change is so important for us and where we see this is going in the near future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, so we're going to be talking a bit more about Aptica as well on the other session. But for the sake of our attendees, I'll just try to keep it broad. We're going to keep it broad and engaging as much as possible, while keeping sure that we address some very specific questions. For example, in terms of creating climate responsible leaders, and of course, in terms of sharing some few basic examples and that we've come across with, and then maybe somehow relate them to some takeaway points that we might have just to end up with a positive note. So that is the intention of today. But other than that, we're here because we care. We're here because we have some burning concerns we have when it comes to the environment and how we've been interacting with it. So we are here just to kind of share our thoughts and hopefully get some feedbacks from the chat box so that we can answer them as we go. First question we want to address is how, basically regarding to young people and how they can create impactful community-led initiatives to stem climate change today. So on one hand, we have climate change as an issue, and then young people, how young people could lead community-led projects. And both Marie and Don, you've mentioned how you've managed to interact with communities to a certain extent. Can you just walk us through them and how that experience started and how it evolved? And yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the big things, and kind of just to dive into my kind of the connection between keeping my passion and then how young people can create that impactful change, we've actually seen a 75% decline in flying insects within North America over the past 50 years. And if you think about, if you're driving across the US or driving through going on a road trip, you used to see, back when I was a kid, when I was 10, 15 years ago, you could see a whole windshield full of bugs. You don't see that anymore. You drive through the fields or the countryside or nowhere, and there are far, far, far fewer bugs. And that doesn't just have an impact on your windshield and your road trip, but it has an impact on the pollination and how food is produced and how agriculture is made a sustainable resource, or how we're able to tap into the resources that nature provides for us to get food through pollination. So that's kind of, for me, something that as a kid, I saw that in living in an apple farm, in seeing the impact of climate change on the bees or the pollinators around us. But the opportunity for young people to create impactful community-led initiatives comes from the fact that young people are catalysts of change. We have a say in the community because we have energy and attention to detail, and we can see that maybe there's small tweaks that could happen and small changes that could be made that could actually have a bigger impact, even if it's just a few more people keeping beehives, which was my vision for my initial project when I first won the SBC challenge. And seeing these small things that allow us to kind of have an impact, because we feel the impact more than anyone else. As young people in the community, we understand that if we continue to allow inaction to drive our communities, we're not going to get anywhere, and we're only going to have this problem exacerbated. So it's, I think, working with people, connecting, communicating. I've had a great opportunity to just talk to people about how bees work, about what pollination is. And, if you don't know what pollination is, look it up, or we can talk afterwards. It's very, very, very important. But there's so much about how we can talk to people, connect, have connection with our community, and build resources around that, and also become catalysts of change, even if it isn't the perfect idea or the best idea. And I think that's something that has an opportunity to drive change because we're willing to try it. We know that we can try something even if it isn't perfect. And we know that if we don't try something, no one else is going to do anything about it. So I think the how aspect of that is through the small baby steps, and the why is because we know that we need to make a change now.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's really, which brings me to the subject of passion. And when was that key moment that, Maria, you realized that you're concerned about the environment, and the transition that led into your personal action? So we're still talking about that trigger point, or an observation that triggered you. So we've heard from Dawn on some of those points. What about you?
Yeah, that's very interesting because where I grew up in Bucaramanga in Colombia, I didn't pay much attention to what was going on around me. I thought it was just life, I thought it was the same in all cities. And I thought like the chaos and the people in the streets, the traffic, I thought that was just ubiquitous. I thought I would find that wherever I went. But as I was studying abroad and as I was like visiting other cities in other countries, I was like, wow, every city is so unique and has its own challenges. But what we did with my co-founders of Aptica was that we identified certain challenges that we saw in the communities we grew up in. For example, in our case, the lack of opportunities for women in rural communities in Costa Rica, and we wanted to do something about it. We didn't want to just be passive and let it be as the normal activity or the normal life in that community. So I think this passion young people have comes from the agency to do something, because we know that we can do something. So a pivoting point for me, and I think for my co-founders, was when we came together to participate in the Social Venture Challenge, and we saw that other people believed in us and in our idea, and we saw that we actually had the power to create change. So that's when we became more confident ourselves, and we started thinking about how else we could create this change in our own communities, in other countries, in school, because at that time we were undergraduate students and we were all going to school. So I feel like the power, one of the biggest strengths youth have today is the power to communicate what they want to do, and what they're passionate about. And not only among our generation, but I feel like we're not afraid of speaking up to other people, be younger or older people. We can do our own research on the topics we're interested in. We want to hold our leaders accountable for their actions or their inactions. We want to demand action. We don't want to be passive observers. We want to be part of that change that is happening in so many cities in all continents. So I think that specifically with climate change, because the science is there and we know what's causing climate change, we know what solutions are out there. It is so important for us to help communicate those to the general public, to communicate that science to an audience that can easily understand these solutions and take action. And I think young people play a key role in this, and I think we are seeing more and more initiatives led by young people that are taking advantage of these strengths we have.
That's interesting. Thank you, Maria. I mean, for me, it was more of, it wasn't per se a trigger point that I did not know we had this much influence or damage on our environment. I did not know we destroyed 60% of biodiversity within just the past 40 years. And all of these statistics are new to me now today. But when I really reflect on it backwards, one of my earliest, when I was younger, some of the immediate observations really came from, immediate things that I saw back from my home city in Addis, where I come from in Ethiopia. We have a lot of plastic waste. We do have deforestation issues. And these were the immediate observations I had. And I thought maybe being a pro-environment was just about planting trees or cleaning up the streets, but it's slowly evolved. My perception kind of evolved over the years on how I see climate change and how human beings are really affecting some of the things around us, on nature that we're really relying upon. So for me, it's just started as a observation, a concern, which kind of led me today in doing my master's in sustainability and business, now being more curious about how businesses shape sustainability concepts and climate change in general, and how we interact with nature. So this was some of the things I personally went through in identifying my interest with the environment and how I started to relate with it. Thanks. It's interesting. Don, you mentioned about bees and apiculture in general. Also, some of the observations I used to have when I was a kid is we used to see a lot of butterflies, and we used to even be stung by bees. And it really doesn't take us to be climate scientists or, really to observe these damages and change we're having on our environment. And when you really see it from the science and when you're practicing it, what are the things you noticed in terms of the damage we're creating and how it opened up for you to explore solutions?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I feel like one of them is the, windshield kind of road trip example, but a lot of it too feeds into, for me at least, like the price of pollination. Like it used to be for farmers who are raising almonds or growing almonds, for example. It used to cost, back in the late 70s, it was not even $20 per beehive. They would bring beehives in, they would pay $20 for them, and they would sit there, pollinate their trees. In the early 2000s, it was $100 per hive, and now it's up to $250 per hive. And those aren't things that people necessarily notice if they're not in the pollination space, but you can notice, like you're saying, that there's maybe less bugs around, or there's less of the same wildflowers that hosted those things. Like, attention to kind of the things around us that have an impact on what we are doing and the world that we're living on is very, very valuable, and also plays into our food as well. Bees and insects, anything small, they're canaries in a coal mine. And if there's anything that is affecting them, they are absolutely just a signal for what's going to be happening and what's going to be affecting the rest of us. And because of that, we need to pay closer attention to the entomological species in our world, specifically bees, things that mean a lot to us. And I feel like those are some of the signs, looking at those, attention to those details, and also understanding the value that they play in our ecosystem and our food system is critical.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, Maria, anything you want to add on that, particularly in terms of, since we're also touch basing on community and how I hope I'm not still revolving on the same questions, but it is kind of important. It's one of the questions we wanted to address in this session, how climate leadership and young people can engage in community-led initiatives. And what were some of the exciting parts in creating that community, the challenge you saw, or experience that you want to share with us?
So I would totally agree with Don that you don't have to be a climate scientist. You don't have to be an expert on this topic to care about the environment, to care about the planet and people, because we are seeing lately that, for example, with cars, we know that traffic is not just bad for the environment, but it's also stressful for us. It has a lot of air pollution. It causes asthma exacerbation, especially in kids and in older people. So now that we are shifting our attention from purely just the environment to how this environment affects people, animals, ecosystems, we see more of the whole picture, right? We're seeing like all the actions that we do have an impact in our own health. And so we see now that communities are taking action to demand safer bicycle infrastructure, more accessibility to public transportation, cleaner buses. They are asking for green spaces in cities, parks, recreational opportunities, because people want to be, not only do they want to take care of the environment, but they also want to be healthy and take care of their own well-being and mental health. So I think this is something really important that is happening right now, and even more with COVID and so many challenges that we're facing. People are realizing the impact our environment, not only the natural environment, but also the built environment in cities has on our own health and well-being. It's been really inspiring to see community-led initiatives that, for example, bicycle rides, people are going out, they're asking their governments to close the streets on Sundays, or maybe have a car-free day every month of the year. So people really want to have these opportunities for taking care of the environment and their own health at home. And this is just people from the general public. It's not only scientists, it's not only public health experts, but everyone is paying more attention to these details now.
That is absolutely critical, because it's true. I feel like people are starting to realize climate change is not just an issue about the physical element of our ecosystem, but it's more has to do with our well-being. And people are starting to question about interrelated issues such as mental health, physical well-being, having aesthetics, and many beyond even the business aspect of it and socioeconomic impacts of it. And it's one of the things I also wanted to raise in this discussion. For example, where I come from in Ethiopia, it's It's a country with 107 million people, mostly striving to achieve middle income status by a certain amount of targets, which the government has set. And a lot of these things now, when I see how my mentality or my perception towards the environment changed, is from just seeing the waste and the deforestation that I observed. Now asking questions: how are we going to sustainably manage such kind of growth? Are we going to follow the same mistakes that other parts of the world have made, or are we putting efforts to mitigate or kind of come up with innovative ideas to address these issues? So those are the questions that are really concerning me as well, and trying to create. So Addis Sustainable Life really kind of emerged, not with this thought, but it kind of triggered me, paved the way to ask these kind of questions. So which now links how I would suggest climate leaders should start to question not climate change being just about saving polar bears or planting trees or this and that, but it really has a lot to do with how our economic system we're going to be governing in the next, if you're into governance or if you're into well-being, how it connects with a lot of aspects of our lives. So I think this is the point I want to point out. So Dawn, is there any?
Yeah, I can kind of touch on both what Maria is saying and also what Nikita's talking about in the chat. Like, how do we strengthen the collective youth climate mitigation efforts, and how, what community initiatives have we seen to combat climate change? There are so many components that are starting, and I think if nothing else, allowing young people to try and allowing young people to have a platform to make mistakes. My initial idea with helping the loss of hives while simultaneously offering economic opportunity in the model that I set it up initially did not work as I planned. But it taught me a lot and helped me ask more questions, because I think to some degree right now, there are a lot of policy questions in climate change or surrounding climate change, and in business and in policy and in academia, we're asking a lot of questions, but sometimes it's the simple questions that young people are asking with an action at the end of it that can have an impact. Like, how do we get more bees? How do we get less plastic in the ocean? Like little things. It doesn't have to be how do we, mitigate like all of these, big picture impact. How do we shift the loss of all bees and all pollinators? Like, it can be simple questions, or where's my honey going to go? What do I do? Like, things that are small, empowering young people to ask those questions and follow through with how to answer them and what those might mean for yourself. For me, it was just asking a specific question about how does my apple farm get more bees? And that was a cascading effect. And allowing people to kind of dive deeper into those issues as well. I feel like that is a way to support, allow them to fail, allow them the space to be supported. And opportunities like Resolution Project are kind of the cornerstone in that process.
Thank you, Dawn. So before heading to the next topic, I would like to just pull our attention to that side chat. I see a familiar name, Nikita. Actually, Nikita is a very good friend of mine who is in the Bahamas. She has a lot to do with marine life conservation and around the coastal areas, and she does a lot of work in trying to promote ocean love, as she puts it, spreading ocean love for the world. And I know she has a lot to, if she was probably in this panel, but she raised something about how to mobilize global efforts towards climate mitigation, and which is also part of the topics we wanted to raise. Of course, we mentioned about community-led initiatives, but when it comes to the global level, what are some of the mechanisms we would like to consider? I think, so for me, we had this back home in Ethiopia, we started this small initiative in which we called Youth Negotiation for Climate Change Convention, in which we're trying to bring young people who are interested in negotiation in the whole policy design and trying to simulate the whole UNFCCC processes. But it's just, I wouldn't go into the details of it, but it's more of, there are initiatives in which, for example, the African Youth Initiative on Climate Change was an initiative I came across with, in which different young people from different countries were trying to mainstream youth priorities and concerns within the UNFCCC process. How much would that be effective or not? It's really up to the young people who are in that, and how much level they want to influence, and really the type of questions you want to ask. So at the end of the day, it's really the type of questions you're willing to boldly push for and ask, and the type of change you really want to make. So it's a broad topic. I don't want to too much get into that. Just to address the side chats for a while before heading to the next question. Maria, can you mention the next point we want to discuss? Meanwhile, I'll check other questions if there are on this side.
Yeah, I would love to address very briefly Abhinav's question, Chad. His question is, do you think we need a pandemic level catastrophe on a global level for the world to take climate change as seriously? And absolutely not. We don't need another pandemic, and we don't need more catastrophes in the world. I think the simplest way I could put it would be like, we need to trust science. We need to see what's going on around the globe. Because climate change is not as localized. Like it may not be knocking on your door, but it is a global issue. And we have to always remember this, that even if you're not being impacted by it personally, your neighbor may be, or your the city next to you may be, and maybe your city is next. So this is very urgent. Climate change is real. It's happening right now, and we need to take action. We need to hold our leaders accountable for their actions and inactions. And I would also suggest that we, as I was mentioning before, we shift our focus a little bit more towards taking care of the human health, because I believe climate change is the biggest opportunity we have right now to improve public health. So if we see this as more of a planetary health issue, not just ecosystem or the forest or the ocean, but if we take a more holistic approach, we're gonna see incredible benefits worldwide. We can help fight poverty. We can create economic opportunities. We can create employment opportunities, reduce inequalities. So I think that we have to think more globally, not so much locally, but we have to start acting locally, as you guys were mentioning before. So no, I don't think we need another pandemic to take action.
So thank you, Mary. So before we have a few minutes, I think 2 minutes before closing, I would like to point out to some very specific recommendations and key specific experiences that we want to share with our audience. I also see it's one of the questions in the chat box. So I would like to just point out that for example, it could be ranging from very small initiatives such as creating conversations online, trying to frame the whole problem of climate change beyond being a physical towards more a sustainability issue. So just start with it might be, and then maybe we have the streets. We have Mangar Lesso project, which was trying to have a car-free streets in Addis, trying to show people the importance of having clean air at least once a week. And then there are even larger projects such as Zafri, where trying to stop the pulp. They're trying to produce pulp products from tree-free products that were supposed to be burned for agricultural waste. So there's a bunch of projects you can. But my final tip would be just start with you. Start with how much your carbon input is. Just personalize it to you, and just start with that personal question. And how it relates to you. So that's my take in this limited time we have. Anything you would like to add, Dawn, Maria, on these unique points? Some specific suggestions before we know time went. Yeah.
Plant pollinator gardens. It's very simple. There's pollinator seed packets. It's like a simple way to start. And then try growing your own seeds and just see what goes into that. And it kind of gives you context and perception of what it means to grow, pollinate, and have food made.
Thank you.
You're on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just leave your car at home once a week. I promise you, you'll be healthier and happier, and just you'll be able to explore the city and see things you don't see when you're on a car or when you're taking other means of transportation. So go outside and enjoy the outdoors.
Very important.
That was perfectly timed, Abby. Thank you so much. I know that 30 minutes really went by so quickly, but I want to give a big, big thank you to Abby for facilitating this conversation, John and Maria for your insights. They were incredible.